Okay, so I'm making this special vlog after finishing The Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 5. Now, I noticed with my Life is Strange playthrough, I actually got my first dislike on that one, and I'm probably going to say that might be because they didn't agree with my end decision, and I got a feeling it's going to be very similar with this one. This one's a little more emotional for me, so I'm going to explain that one a little bit more. Not saying that the end of Life is Strange one's an emotional, but this one is different, and I'll explain why. So, my reason for having Clementine go into Wellington without Kenny, obviously, well, you may notice there was a huge pause. I mean, I let Kenny talk the entire time, and it's always a hard decision. This is not the first time I've made this decision, but doesn't matter how many times I make it. It's kind of a tough one, and here's why. First off, the reason why it was difficult was, obviously, you've been with Clementine since the very first episode in the first season, and actually same goes for Kenny. So, these characters, you've been with them for now two complete seasons. I mean, you've been with them the whole time. You've seen their changes, even though in the timeline there's obviously over a year gap between when the first season ended and when you really kick into gear in the second season. I mean, over 18 months total have passed easily, maybe even 20. But as a player, I mean, as these episodes were coming out, I mean, like with the first season, you had roughly maybe a month or two almost between each episode, and it just kind of allowed these characters to sort of sit with you and just kind of get to know them, and then as you kind of mull over all your decisions from the previous episode, you just slowly kind of try to justify your own decisions in these games, and it just these characters grow on you, and that was definitely the case with back in season 1 of Walking Dead. It just, I mean, at the end of it, even though you couldn't really control the ending, because no matter what, Lee was going to die. So spoilers if you haven't seen my Season 1 playthrough, or any Season 1 playthrough of this game. But that's the reality. It's just, that's something you couldn't control. It was going to happen no matter what your choice, but it was still hard. So, in a way, that kind of took away from the ending decision. So even though you were sad and you felt bad about what had to be done, the game was forcing you, and it kind of took away some of your decision, so it didn't make it seem as bad, because you couldn't avoid the end. It was going to happen. And that's what makes the decision so hard in Season 2, because now at this point you've got 2 full seasons of kind of getting to know Clementine and getting to know Kenny, and just see these adventures just unfold. And when you're faced with that decision, it's the first time that your decision actually affects the ending of the game, meaning whatever choice you make, it's going to affect you. You have no excuse. The game's not going to hold your hand. It's saying, you have this choice. You will either go with Kenny, or you will respect what Kenny's asking and enter Wellington. And the reason why it's a hard decision is both are rooted in emotion. And at that point, you're feeling a lot of it. Because you want to stay with, because in one sense, you want to stay with this character that you've known this entire time. I mean, in the span when these games were coming out, I mean, you're talking within a span of 2 years. I know it wasn't really that long, but within that span of 2 years, you had all these episodes coming out. So all these episodes spread out amongst that time, it makes it difficult. So you've got this one character you just want to stick with because you trust him, you know him, and in a way you've grown to love him. And as crazy as Kenny got, you wanted to stick with him. But on the other hand, he was finally clear-headed after everything that happened. The clearest you've probably seen Kenny since you ran back into him back in episode 2 of that season. He obviously came unhinged and he kind of lost it, although Sarita seemed to ground him a little bit. And that's what he needs. He needs a ground. His family grounded him in season 1. When he lost that, obviously it hurt. It would hurt anyone. But I think what it was a combination of Clementine and Lee that helped kind of pull him back a little bit. They kept him grounded as well when his family was no longer there to do that. Then, of course, you think you lost him. But then when episode 2 of season 2 comes along and you find out that he's alive, you just can't believe it. But you also found out that he was discovered by Sarita after being alone for a while. And he just, even though he was a wreck, Sarita brought him back down to reality a little bit, but not completely. He still had plenty of issues after being found by her. And though she helped, I think Clementine showing up when she did helped to remind him of a better time. And I think that's why Clementine does do a better job of keeping him kind of, anchored. But, so then of course now you're wondering, why would I make that decision to then leave Kenny and have them go into Wellington? Well, the main reason is, though Clementine obviously does help to keep him grounded, the one thing she's not an adult. And that's what Kenny needs. He needs an adult that he can trust to keep him grounded. Because a kid can only do it for so long. Because there's a level that Kenny would need to at least be able to discuss and talk and be candid about. But Clementine is, I think about ages, she's like 10, 11 years old now. She's still a kid. There's certain things that he wouldn't be comfortable discussing with the child. So as much as having Clementine helps, in the long run, I didn't believe that she would be able to help keep him grounded, not without another adult there to help. And that's what Kenny needs. He needs an adult he can open up to. So that way it helps keep him more calm, and there's someone there to really reel him back when he goes off the edge. And though, like I said, though Clementine did help, that can only help for so long. Just because there's a level that Clementine can't reach with him. Clementine's too young. She's plenty of years off. Maybe one day, yes, if she were to grow up and become an adult and know a little bit more about that life, then maybe yes. And I'm kind of banking on, as the story continues, and I haven't heard anything about that yet, but I'm banking on the fact that just like with what happened, in season 2 of the game, because Kenny came back to us, we didn't even expect it. So I'm kind of hoping that he'll come back, or there'll be a way he will come back. Because what can I say? I love the idiot. He's, but, and also I wanted to. My other justification too is, obviously after you saw the cutaway 9 days later, that he was probably the most himself again after that. But just spending time with Clem and being able to help, care for AJ, I think reminded him of better days, probably with Duck and Katja. So I think it helped level him out, getting away from others for a little while and being with someone that brought back those good memories. and that was Clementine for sure. And probably caring for AJ probably, like I said, reminded him of his family life. Which means when he was saying to Clem to just go in, that's what he wanted. He was the most level-headed he had been that entire season. And as much as I really wanted to stay with him, I felt that I had to make Clem finally make that decision. Because it was the most level-headed decision he made that entire season. I mean, I may have agreed with him in some areas during the season, but that's only when he had a point, but he was becoming unhinged. And now that he finally kind of calmed down and he was kind of getting back on track, I just had to... That's what he was asking, which means I had Clem do it. And no matter what times I make decisions, it's never easy, because... I mean, I don't do face cams for these, but as that was going on, I was starting to well up. Again, and it's not the first time I made the decision. And it was still difficult to make. Which tells you a lot about the story of this game and how well it's done. So, even if you disagree with my end decision, because as you may have seen in the statistics, I was in the unpopular area. And I guess the reason could be is a lot of people are driven by emotion. I mean, obviously I was too, but the main difference is I was driven by both emotion as well as just some logic as well. I mean, it seems like they don't go hand in hand, but and it can be difficult. It's hard to process, and as you saw, it took me forever. Well, not forever, but it took me a good long while to make that decision, to the point where Kenny finished his entire dialogue with Clementine. And definitely there's a few seconds after that, I still didn't make the decision. Because even though I knew what decision I was going to make, I was seriously contemplating making the other decision just because. I mean, that's how hard it was. Even though I already knew what decision I wanted to make, emotion was basically telling me to push the other button and stay with Kenny. It was hard for a simple button press. But I just wanted to kind of see. Even now, I'm just thinking about it, but I just wanted to at least justify to some of you who might have watched this playthrough why I made the decision I made, because I got a feeling that some will dislike it because they don't like my decision. But that's why I can constantly say when I play these kinds of games, this is my story. This is the story I have unfold. This might not be your story. This might not be the story in your head. The experience I have. So don't feel that you have to make this decision, or that I'm making the de facto decision in the story, because that's not the point of these games. These kinds of games are meant to have the story unfold how you see fit. How... It's hard to explain, but basically, again, just don't feel like these are the decisions you have to make. This is not like the canon story, because every story in these kinds of games is the canon story. Like with Life is Strange. I mean, I personally felt like the game was saying that I had to sacrifice Chloe. Because I felt that. But my decision there was basically based off of that Chloe had realized that Max had been saving her that entire week. And that there was only one thing Chloe could do. And it was to tell Max to go back and just let things happen like they were probably supposed to. Because that's when it all changed, and that's when the storm started happening. And that's why I made that decision in Life is Strange, was because it was Chloe saying that this was the one thing she could do to help Max for once, who'd been helping her and keeping her alive all this time. Now, you may not have seen it like that. I know a friend who couldn't make that decision and just chose to save Chloe and to hell with the town. And again, perfect example. I felt the story was going one way, but my friend couldn't bring herself to do it. I mean, she had her reasons, but to me, I can't justify that reason either. Just like she couldn't justify the other reason. And like with what I just finished, I mean, not everyone's going to be able to justify to others. It's just your story. And you may not agree with my indecision on Season 2 of this game, but it is my decision. It's my story. But it doesn't invalidate anyone else's decision, because every decision made in these games, they're technically canon. They're canon to every single person. So my playthrough may, if you want, my playthrough could be a way for you to kind of be ready for some of the decisions you might want to make if you ever want to use it as a guide. But just know, though, that anything you might choose will change your story and give you different decisions. So just know that. I will eventually get to The Walking Dead Michonne, eventually, probably in the near future. And other games I'm probably going to try to do is I might go ahead and try to do The Wolf Among Us, another Telltale game. As you can tell, I love some of these games. And the only reason for that is I do start work soon. And being able to stream anything but these storytelling games are going to be a little difficult and a little far between. And definitely my Nuzlocke, because it takes a lot to put one of those up. I was lucky enough to get a batch of them out as I did. But, I mean, I'll get to those more. But the easy ones right now are going to be the storytelling ones like Telltale Games. So I'll probably do that. And I do have Game of Thrones as well, the Telltale one. So I never did finish that one. I actually didn't play the last 2 episodes. So now that I can do this, I might actually just replay the game in its entirety and just put it on the channel as well. So you also got that to look forward to. But I already purchased that one, so that one I already have. It's just a matter of getting to it. But look forward to those. And like I said, other games are going to be coming down the line as I do them. It'll be weekends mostly when I start work. I might be able to get the odd one here and there during the week. So hopefully I put enough content on here to at least, be interesting. Anyway. Oh, wow. I'm looking at 18 minutes. Okay, so in that case, I will have to go ahead and sign off. Alright, so catch you later.